1 week season.
1 week season, fam, La Familia, Mike Johnson, M Johnson 86 here. Welcome back, Bestball Plus 2024. We are here with you for Wake and Snake week 3. It is currently we're recording is Sunday, May 12th. This will go live on Monday, May 13th. Excited to be here. We are once again going to be drafting on drafters. Without further ado, I'm going to bring on my esteemed co-host, Billy Gableman, StatATL as we know him. How you doing today?
Mike, I'd be doing so much better if I had a wicked cool drafters t-shirt like you were rocking today.
Look at there. You know, got to rep it. They hooked me up last year. Before I won, it was actually like after like I had maxed it and done a couple pods like talking them up last year, and they shot me a shirt. And this year, anyone who maxes it gets a shirt, gets $100 in a shirt, as well as like 7 contest tickets for their milestone promotions. So pretty cool. I'm actually we're diving right into it today, people. Gonna be in the $2 on drafters, and I got the first pick once again. I think I did a couple weeks ago too. So yeah, back at it. First pick. You know, I can't get away from. Well, I think you had a guy you want to talk about.
Oh, you don't have to do that. You could go CMC here at 1.
Oh, I'm not taking.
You want to go Lamb? I know.
All right. I'm gonna take Lamb. He's been my guy. Sticking with CeeDee Lamb at 1. Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm probably not going to get any Christian McCaffrey this year, which I'm okay with for various reasons. I've gotten into some of those reasons the first couple weeks on like my training sessions, just from like a roster composition standpoint. I will have more of him on like DraftKings, but on drafters, I'm good with it. Yeah, so 3 weeks. I think I've had the first pick twice and the 12th pick once. So
we haven't get to draft in the middle together, my friend.
Yeah, it's like
it'll happen.
It's not rigged, people. I swear. They probably think that some sort of influencer status to allow us more time to talk. Is not the case. I wish I was given that status, but no. This is just, it's just as fate would have it, the people are going to get more of us. So there you go.
I will tell you from the drafts that I've done, and I think I've done about as many as you. I'm up to about a dozen now.
Yeah.
I much prefer the 1 through 7 hole versus 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I know you mentioned that last year, like the top however many places all drafted out of the 10th, 11th, 12th spots.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's
the top 10. Yeah.
A sample size of 1. I don't know. To me, every draft that I've done where I've gotten to pick in the top 7, I've liked the outcome better than my drafts that have not been at the top.
Well, that stuff too, like it's interesting, and I did bring it up, but it was more of like I guess understanding. When I brought that up, I don't remember which pod or what it was when I was talking about it, but if it was on here, I think it was one of the free ones last week or from our first week. But it's more about the roster composition aspect of it to me than like 10, 11, 12 is like always optimal in this format, because so it's a survivorship bias thing. So last year you had, with Adams and Amon-Ra both being like guys who were picked in that range and having such monster seasons. And then you had guys like Jefferson, Chase get hurt. And CMC has obviously had a great season, but just the way it worked out. And then I don't even remember all of the first round, the rest of the first, like Eckler, obviously he didn't work out. Bijan, well, like he had a good season, but not like so it was just like the hit rate was better with those guys. Now, that doesn't mean that that's always, I think, going to be the optimal spot. And I think that the more I look at it, I think that you're right, that 3 to 7 range is probably going to be the optimal spot this year just because of what it gives you. I think those first 5 wide receivers, Lamb, Hill, Jefferson, Chase, and St. Brown, like, obviously, like, yeah, Lamb's the number 1 right now, and Tyreek, we know what he's capable of, but like Chase, Jefferson, Amon-Ra, like, if any of those 5 guys were the wide receiver 1 this year, nobody would, like,
No one would be surprised.
no one would be any more surprised by one than any of the others. I don't think. So I think that kind of you're going to get one of those guys, and then as you see, we're coming back in the second round here. Just kind of the way it falls, you're probably going to get 2 of these receivers in the, Debo, Diggs, Ayuk, Waddle, Neighbors, DJ Moore, Cup. Like, you can get 2 of those guys, and just kind of sets you up nice for a lot of the things we've talked about these first 2 weeks.
I think when I've done drafts and I've had these similar options, I think I've taken DJ Moore almost every time when he's been available to me in this range.
Yeah, I've got him. I think he's like 16th or 17th in my rankings. Yeah, I'm taking him, and
I'm not used to seeing Achane be available at this spot. I haven't drafted first yet, so I think the biggest surprise that I've seen so far on this board is I haven't seen Nico Collins basically go in the first round yet. He went on the 12-13 turn. I've never seen him go that early yet.
Yeah, the 12-13 there with Drake London and Nico. Yeah, with Gibbs. It's interesting too because like the theory stuff, like you've got to be able to, I call it dynamic drafting. Like you've got to be a dynamic drafter where you can like adjust. So like this Greig 813, he's on his 104th draft. This is in the $2 contest, by the way, for the viewers. But he got Bijan Robinson at the 10th pick and then comes back with Gibbs at the 15th pick. And it's like all the stats I've given about optimal positions and what you see, this, that, and the other, like that's great. But like if you're able to put those 2 on a roster together, that's pretty good. And it's not something that's happening a ton. Now, I'm actually going to be talking in this week's training session, drafters specific training session for Bestball Plus subscribers. I'm going to be talking about like where this guy, where Greig 813, where he should go next. Like now that if this is where the draft takes him to start, like how do you adjust your strategy, your roster going forward from some of the other stuff? Like now you've gotten kind of off maybe what optimal on the surface looks like. But that's kind of what we're going to talk about this week.
I'm going to be excited to tune into that one, Mike, because I know where I would go. I would be leaning. I probably got to take 5 or 6 wide receivers basically in a row, and he comes straight and takes a quarterback with Josh Allen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'd be interesting. Be interesting to see how he goes through this. Accidentally clicked off there for a second. Oh, and I forgot to take myself out of the $15 one. So there we are. I have to do that one on my phone simultaneous.
And you could tell that our guy in the 12 hole here had a plan of where he wanted to go because he just took Stroud at 37, and I don't think I've seen Stroud go before, maybe around 50, in any draft I've done so far. I guess he said, I'm taking Nico. I want Stroud, and
I think that's a big mistake in this.
I would agree.
To force that stack. It'd be one thing if Tank had fell and he could have got Tank and Stroud, and you're just like kind of betting on Houston, like they're gonna have just this like
monster year.
Yeah, this right.
And I feel like, and you and I may have differing opinions on that, but I feel like that for me, I'm kind of a risk adverse person. That's something I'm perfectly willing to do in a $2 draft.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? The payout up top is still, a nice nutted 20 grand.
Mm-hmm.
I'm willing to take a shot and say, yeah, I mean, this is probably not, I don't know that I would do it in his spot. I don't know that I would have gone Dell and Stroud, even if they were available that early, because I feel like you can draft that team other places. You know what I mean? If you have the 8th or 9th pick or whatever, you can easily get Nico Collins, Dell, and Stroud.
And when you reach on a guy like Stroud, you're putting yourself in such a disadvantage because, like, to your point, like there are going to be people who like Stroud. I think his ADP is like
it's like 55 or something.
Yeah, so like there are going to be people who get Stroud in like the 5th with Dell in the 4th. And they got one of Nico or Diggs in the 2nd or 3rd, like, yeah, where they have a lot better players. Like they've got a lot more around him than what you do when you force Stroud into that 37th overall pick. So two more picks that were up here.
Yeah, I know. He then he added Derrick Henry, which I know is a guy you are not high on. So I could already tell you so far that's probably your least favorite team of the 12 that have gone so far.
Yeah, confirmed. Let's see. All right, we're gonna go with.
What positions you thinking here?
Well, I know you want to talk about him, so I'm gonna take and I like him, so I'm gonna take Amari Cooper, and then I'm gonna take Mark Andrews. So I keep ending up with him. My drafts keep looking the same, I think. So yeah, you were talking to me a little bit before we started about the Browns. So yeah, what are you thinking? I know you said you've done some drafts. Like where's your head at with the Browns?
I feel like the Browns are a team that you can bet on. And I really like correlation. I know we're doing a best ball show, but I know a lot of our listeners are also, 1 week season regular subscribers as well. And, a lot of folks tune into the roster review shows that I did kind of the latter half of the season. I really like the correlation. I know it's not necessary. We're not trying to force it here in best ball, but I feel like the Browns are there's a couple teams, but the Browns are a team that I feel like you can get all of their key skill position players late. Amari Cooper generally going, late 4th, early 5th. And then, if you grab Njoku as a tight end, generally like 7th, 8th, 9th round, depending. It's easy to kind of, you can take both. And you can take both with Ford and Chubb much later, like 130th overall pick. And then you're getting, you're able to grab Deshaun Watson at like 160, 170 as like your number 2, number 3, quarterback. I feel like, I know in previous weeks we talked about kind of rising tides, raising all boats. Like I feel like they're an offense that is a concentrated offense that you really don't have to gamble on late. You know what I mean? Like their opportunity cost is low. And you could totally be right, and it doesn't cost you a whole lot of draft capital. You know what I mean? I'm not saying you got to pick this guy in the 2nd round. Like these are 5th and 8th and 12th and further round picks. It's just, to me, it's an easy bet to make. Doesn't mean you're going to be right, but if you're right and the Browns do have a really strong offense, you're way ahead.
Yeah. So It's interesting you bring that up because so like for me, like that's basically what you just laid out is why I'm not very high. Like I won't have much of the Texans. It's not that I don't think they're going to have a good season.
Just
It's
a high
that
opportunity cost.
yeah,
Drafting
like they're
early.
so expensive that like you basically have to be right to that degree just to like break even, just to hold water.
Mhm.
Um
So
I
how would
love
you feel if you were able to pair them? You know what I mean? If you were able to kind of have a higher bet like that, where you took Nico Collins in the third round, or the second round, and maybe you got Diggs or Dell later, or even if you don't, and maybe you grab Schultz, whose ADP is like 215 or 220. You know what I mean? You could double stack there with Houston, and you can grab. I don't want to call that a safer bet, um, but generally you see offenses take a step forward in a quarterback's second year, and he's you know Dell. You're taking second year players on wide receivers too. Like I don't know. To me, that's a bet that I like. I agree. I feel like the ceiling isn't as high because the ceiling, the floor is just high already. There's not as much room for growth. Whereas with Cleveland, there is. To me, I've done a couple drafts where I've kind of paired them together and said, hey, I'm going to bet on these. Obviously, I'm not taking 12 guys from the two teams, but I'm going to grab 3 from the Texans and 3 from the Browns, and just kind of bet on those two offenses.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, it's not that I don't like Stroud, it's that, like, he's going, like,
The
4
same
rounds,
as Mahomes and
3 or 4
Lamar and
rounds
Richardson.
before Caleb Williams and Dak Prescott, like, 2.5 rounds before Burrow. You've
Mhm.
got Richardson, Mahomes, Lamar. Like, really, to me, after you get past, like, the 3rd round, there's 2 or 3 rounds that it's relatively similar. So, like, if
Mhm.
you're gonna take a quarterback in that range, it's not all that different to me, like, if it's the 4th or the 6th.
Sure.
Um, so, like, it's not that I don't like Stroud, it's that, like, I don't know, I think there's a better chance of, like, um oh, I'm back up.
Mhm.
Let's see. Got here. Alright, we'll take Kamara, get a running back, run it back with him after he was on my team last year. And then let's see.
I found myself going in the same spot. You're going to click the same name I've clicked 50% of my drafts when he's available in the range.
Who's that?
Jordan Addison. I've taken
Yeah.
him probably 50% at about
Yeah.
the same spot, 7th, 8th round.
Yeah. And Best Ball Plus subscribers will know what I'm talking about. But like I think if they listened last week, I like how he fits in my positional silo here, and I like how like from a usable week standpoint, like how his archetype kind of fits in with the rest of this. Like you've got Lamb, obviously stud, and then you've got Cooper Cup, who is like you know, when he's healthy, he's going to be a relatively consistent type of guy. Um, he might not have the ceiling that he did 2 or 3 years ago with Puka around. Um, but those two, and then you've got more Amari and Addison as like spike week type guys to kind of
Mhm.
complement. So
Yep.
kind of like how he fits in on this roster, especially. Um, well, we were talking about the Texans. The worry I have with them is like you've got Stroud, who is very good, and I think all the receivers are good too, but also like, okay, I guess I'll say it like this. I won't really be looking to stack multiple of the receivers together. Um, I'll have exposure to all 3 of them, I would say. Um, but definitely won't have all three on any rosters. And I'm not going to go out of my way to try to make it happen to get like even two of them on my rosters. And I don't think that just the way it plays out, it's just a lot. I don't think, and to your point of like if you take Nico, you could take Schultz later. Like I'm fine with that if it ends up that way. Like Schultz is kind of the same way. Like I'll take him if it fits the rest of my roster, but I'm not gonna. It's just so different on drafters. Like it's not DraftKings and Underdog. Like the one spike week, like last year they had that insane game against the Bucks. Like if you had a huge Texans stack, like if that had been like week 16 or 17, like you had to have it to win. There's not like a scenario at these prices where like you have to have that to win. And I think that players that play the same position that are all priced that high, like 3 receivers in the top 4 rounds, like that's insane. Like it's insane.
There's no way that they can all pay off there.
Right. So like it just to win a contest like this with potentially 180,000 entries in it, and basically say like, yeah, one of my first 5 picks is gonna disappoint. That's a hard thing to like sign up for. All right, getting ready to come back to me. Is Dak gonna fall right in my lap here?
Let's see. Number 2 drafter's got a quarterback. Does this guy have a quarterback?
There he went.
You mushed it. That's what we say in golf.
Yeah. Let's see.
Would you consider what's Caleb Williams' ADP these days?
Yeah, that's where I'm looking. So yeah, gonna go Caleb Williams, and then we'll take Tony Pollard here. So Caleb, yeah, I mean he's a guy. So like that's the thing. I don't see a huge difference between Caleb Williams' situation and CJ Stroud's situation for that. Look at, so in the 4th round, I got Amari Cooper. So you look at Caleb Williams and Amari Cooper, or you could call it Caleb my 9th rounder because I just took 2 there. But those 2 against Stroud and Romeo Doubs, like I think that's a strong advantage to the Caleb Williams side, in my opinion.
Sure.
It's very similar, like 3 stud wide receivers, young quarterback.
I think what you're paying for with Stroud, and not trying to push people to do this, I think why you're seeing him draft higher is he's more of a, I don't want to say a known entity, a known commodity, where we have certainly seen number 1 overall picks at quarterback. I mean, just look at last year. Obviously, the Panthers do not have 3 stud wide receivers, but you have certainly seen highly regarded quarterbacks who are drafted number 1 or in the top 10 fall flat on their face.
My thing with Stroud is he doesn't run. He had the one game against Jacksonville. He had 6 for 47. He kind of cut loose for one long one, but otherwise he had no games over 20 yards rushing. The other thing is he was really good. Don't get me wrong, but if you look at, I've got his numbers up here. He had the 30-point game against Jacksonville. He had 41 in that Tampa game. But the rest of his
very middling.
Yeah, I mean he had 1, 2, 3, 4. So he had 5 20-point games besides that. So 7 20-point games, it's not terrible. And he only
But it's not winning you the contest.
What's that?
It's not
No,
winning you the
yeah,
contest.
and for a 4th round pick, like he was very good last year, but also like basically my thing is like remembering like why we have the perceptions we do is like a big thing. It's like Stroud was, people thought like they were.
I know you've got another draft going on, so you got to give me some type of signal where you need me to carry conversation while you were picking in the other draft.
No, I'm good.
Okay.
No, but I don't understand. It's like Stroud, everybody thought the Texans weren't going to be that great last year, right? They came in, there was low expectations. Their receiver core was all like no names at that point. And he came out and yeah, he had what was it? 4. Yeah, so 3 of the first 4 weeks he scored 20 fantasy points, which like that's great. But also like he just got hyped up so much because he was overachieving from what we expected that like he's like getting like double credit. Like he's getting, this year people are like over their memory of what happened is like being too kind to him, I guess. So that's kind of my take on it.
Sure.
Here you go. One more pick to.
So we can. I know we sort of chatted about it a little bit. Something that I've been doing a decent amount is taking Ford and Chubb on the same team.
Let's do it.
And I think I've been doing it a lot. I mean, I've only done a dozen drafts. I've probably done it six times, and it's all been when I'm kind of building more of these 0 RB builds where I'm not taking a running back until 6th, 7th round. And it's just like, all right, I'm gonna take a couple of shots. And I feel like there's a strong possibility that one of those two guys becomes a workhorse bell cow back. You know, if Chubb isn't ready and doesn't come back, I mean, we saw what Cleveland allowed Ford to do last year. And if Chubb does come back quicker than expected and back to full strength, which I think is less than likely outcome, but certainly in the range of outcomes. If I told you that Chubb was going to be healthy starting by game 5 of this year, he'd be healthy and 90% of what he was last year. Do you think he's a 3rd or 4th round pick?
No.
Or do you think you still think he's an 11th round pick?
No, he's somewhere in the middle, probably like 7th. I mean, yeah. So I'd say he's like a 6th, 7th round pick.
Yeah. So to me,
probably goes around where like Kamara and Mixon went.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So to me, I'd like that 5 rounds later value and taking a shot, and that's where I've liked to go with some of these. One of the guys we didn't get to draft, but it's interesting to me, and I haven't, I'm not following any other content other than OWS's. Have we chatted about Cortland Sutton much this year on anything you and Mallow have done? I haven't listened to all the stuff. It's interesting to me that he's going so late, like 11th, 12th round, 10th, 11th, 12th round. A lot of these drafts, he's going over 100th. Where he had like 10, I'm going by memory, so I could be totally wrong, but I'm going to say somewhere between 8 and 12 touchdowns last year, which is like, obviously touchdowns are variant, but he also lost Jerry Jeudy. Like he has much less competition for targets this year. I feel like he's a guy that I'm happy to take in the 10th round.
Yeah, he went in the 10th here. He had 10 touchdowns last year.
Yeah, and we know that offense is going to be at least equal to what it was last year. It's likely not going to regress, even though they probably got Bo Nix under center.
Right.
I can't see him being that much worse than what we saw with Russ Wilson last year.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. Denver's one that's like, their team is really interesting to me because they made the Knicks pick, and I'm not a big Sean Payton fan. I think he has kind of lived off like a reputation he built with like an extreme outlier in the Saints situation with getting Drew Brees at like a huge discount because people were worried about his injury, and then it like paid off and like it just fit well, and like I mean he does some good offensive stuff, but I don't think he's anywhere close to in today's NFL. He's not anywhere close to as like advanced or like it used to be like that he was like running circles around people, and I think he thinks he still is, but he's not.
Mm-hmm.
And they make the Knicks pick, which by most accounts was a pretty big reach, and he's kind of like Peyton, like he's trying to compare him to Breeze, like he's trying to just like recreate something that worked for him before. And like I think they could be in like the Arizona Cardinals situation where when they took Josh Rosen and then had like this awful season, and then they end up with the number one pick and had to decide like, okay, do we take Kyler Murray or like what do we do? So I'm really interested to see if that is just like a complete train wreck or if they can salvage anything out of it. Coming up here.
What's standing out to you if it's available to us?
Just looking at what we've got here. We've got the Browns guys, we've got Pollard. So I'm going to take Jalen Wright from the Dolphins, and I'm going to take Kendre Miller. So I've got two backs from the Saints and two backs from the Browns. So
I'm kind of hoping we have a bell cow out of them.
Yeah, and just the way things work out. Probably what I'll end up doing here is so I've got Williams. When it comes back around to me, I'll probably probably look to take Watson to round out that Browns bet, just because he's so cheap. He's a guy who 3 years ago or whatever we were talking about as like one of the, and if you're in dynasty formats at all, he was like a top 3 quarterback. Obviously was really bad last year, but I don't mind, especially on a roster like this that's got the wide receiver one and a big bet on their backfield. Having him as the next quarterback. And then probably I'll probably look to take if like McCarthy or May are available at the 16-17 turn.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where I'm looking with, one pick at each of the next 2 turns.
I like that.
Got 5 wide receivers, so
I think you need a wide receiver in both of those turns as well.
We'll see, because with Andrews, we'll see what the board looks like. We'll see where we're at, but I definitely need at least one. And
there's a couple of in the daily fantasy game, we call them more punt tight ends. There's 2 or 3 punt tight ends that I feel like I've grown high on compared to ADP that I feel like I've been kind of grabbing. If I grab a stud tight end, one of the top 5 guys, I'm generally waiting until 17th, 18th, 19th round and just being happy to grab. Scroll down and let me see the ball. I feel like I've been taking Okonkwo a lot in the 18th, 19th round.
Mm-hmm. I like Noah Fant a lot.
I've taken Noah Fant a few times. I've taken Mike Gesicki a few times. Certainly on the builds where I'm starting, if I'm grabbing in that 3, 4, 5, 6 range, and I'm
Watson
I'm going there with wide receiver. Go ahead. Oh shit.
Yeah. No worries.
Yeah.
I don't.
I know you're not as high on the Browns as I am, nor do you care as much about the correlation.
Yeah, I'm pretty high on the Browns. I
Okay.
love Jerry Jeudy. I love Elijah Moore. So, and their backfield's always good. And Watson is a excellent cost considered bet. So, yeah, I wouldn't say I'm much below you on the Browns.
It just feels like, and obviously we don't need to beat a dead horse on the Browns here. It just feels like the upside is really there. Like if you're right, the amount of draft capital that you're
Mhm.
spending on it, you could get. I wouldn't be surprised if Amari Cooper ended the season as a top 10, top 12 wide receiver overall. To me, I think he has that upside, and you're
Mhm.
taking him in the 5th round. I think you could say the same thing for Njoku. I think Njoku could be a top 5 overall tight end, and that wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, I think he was last year.
Well, he's not being drafted like it.
Yeah, well, part of that's because Andrews is back. Kincaid wasn't top 5, but like his role is going to be different. Pitts
They go
has
8th or 9th
Pitts
here.
has somebody with a functioning arm.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. So where are we at? 168, 169. So what do we have? All right. So I'm gonna go with a little youth movement. I'm gonna take Burton, Jermaine Burton, the rookie for the Bengals, and I'm also gonna take. I'm going to go with Malachi Corley for the Jets. So a couple of rookie wide receivers there. Hilo did a nice piece this last week in his game theory, talking about in his game theory breakdown. He was talking about basically closing line value, which is the concept of like in betting. If you get a bet down when on a team that's favored by 3 points early in the week, and then by the time it kicks off, they're 5 or 6 point favorites. There's a lot of value there because you got it at a better number.
Mhm.
Same sort of deal with Bestball drafting so early. One of the biggest things you can do is generate that value by guys that you get later now that your opponents in that same contest end up paying a much higher price for. Burton and Corley are two rookies who talented guys who fit specific roles for their teams. So yeah, I like getting those guys on this roster where with how we went with the 4 receivers right out the gate, I think these guys fit perfectly in that if they're a little slow starting as rookies, that's probably all right, but they've got, asymmetric upside. And they also like if in August they're heavily featured in their offense or they're starting, which, I kind of expect them both to be, these could be guys that are going up in that same range as like Gabe Davis, Rashid Shaheed, Josh
Mhm.
Palmer types. So
Yeah,
um,
4 and 5 rounds earlier for
yeah.
sure.
What are your you were talking about the Bengals before we hopped on. What are your thoughts on them this year?
I think that they're kind of an offense that's getting slept on a little bit.
Mhm.
And I think it really comes back more to the conversation we were having around quarterbacks.
Mhm.
I feel like Burrow is like 7th round most times, 8th round, and you're right. It's hard to want to take Stroud in the 5th, or he went in the 4th this round in this draft. When 4 rounds later, I could get Burrow. Like
Mhm.
that, to me, they seem like a similar ceiling. I don't know why I want to pay 4 rounds higher for Stroud.
Mhm.
Um, and so, yeah, I know off the hop you were joking about who you were going to take at 101. Um, but I don't know. If I'm picking in that 3, 4, 5, range, I don't mind going there and grabbing a Bengal and personally trying. Yeah, obviously I'm not trying to reach, but happy to try to pair him with Burrow. If I grab Chase at 5 or 6, I'm happy to grab Burrow in the 7th or 8th round and just kind of complete that bet. And
and I think that's one where it makes like far and away so much sense to try to do that because Burrow is being so heavily discounted.
Mhm.
And when you make that bet on Chase when you take him in that first half of the first round, you're basically saying like, yeah, he's going to be like that Jamar Chase, like the guy we remember, the guy we think of.
Mhm.
And
And if
that
he's the guy we
happens,
remember, Burrow is having an at least above average season.
Burrow's having he's having the year where he was drafted for last year, which is like a 4th, 5th round pick, rather than an 8th or 9th round pick or 7th or 8th round pick, whatever. Depending on what site you're on. So I think that's one where like if I get Chase, then the way I think about, and 1 week season subscribers will know what I'm talking about when I say my quarterback silo, regardless of where other guys might fall in that draft, I'll be very aware of like that Burrow makes sense to fill my quarterback silo. Whereas like I wouldn't have that same thought necessarily automatically with Tyreek. Oh, I have to get Tua, or Jefferson. Like I have to get McCarthy. So
no, I agree with you 100%.
Like you can get them. There's nothing like if one of these guys has a wide receiver 1 season, their quarterback's probably meeting or beating their projection. But like Burrow's the type, like if Chase is having a wide receiver 1 season, Burrow might just be like.
I think it's unlikely that Burrow is the QB1 overall, but I think he certainly has top 3 or top 4 potential.
So went ahead and double tapped there on the quarterback position. Took May and McCarthy. So got the Williams, May, McCarthy, 3 of the I guess Penix was in there, but 3 of the top 4 by most draft experts evaluations. So just betting like, and you got him. I got him in the 8th, 16th, 17th. So just looking to have that work out one way or the other. Tight end position. Tight ends are like flying off the board. Some of these teams have like 3 or 4 tight ends already. Interesting.
Yeah, not a strategy that I have been implementing in any of my drafts so far. I do think 1 out of the 12, or maybe 2 out of the 12 I've done so far, I've ended with 3 tight ends, but generally I'm going 2. And I'm generally I don't know. For me, a lot of times I am grabbing a higher end tight end, and I've kind of been all over the board with it. I've taken Kelsey, I've taken Kincaid, I've taken Andrews. I'm not specific on one guy, but I do like taking one in the first 6 rounds. I just feel like the upside to separate is so substantial there. It's worth the risk in my mind.
Yeah, and the nice thing, I mean, yeah, obviously Laporta's coming off a tight end 1 season. Kelsey is Kelsey. McBride, I mean, he legitimately like looked like Gronkowski last season for stretches of the season. You got, then you've got Kincaid in a bigger role, Pitts with a functioning quarterback, Andrews healthy. Kittle's great. Ingram was the tight end 3, I think, last year. Ferguson and Njoku. And Njoku was the tight end 5. Ferguson, like the top end of the tight end position is like it's super intriguing this year, just the way it sits.
I mean, there was a large stretch of the season where Ferguson was leading the league in like red zone targets, not just at tight end, like at any position. And it was
Right.
more than halfway through the season. It was, I don't want to say quote me on the week, but it was like through week 12 or week 13. He was leading the league in red zone targets.
Yeah. And
And
that
he's
was
a guy
Ferguson.
huh?
That was Ferguson.
Yeah, that was Ferguson.
Yeah. And well, and like with what they've done with their backfield it's Zeke and Rico Dowdle, like they could be even more pass heavy this year. So
Yeah.
that'll be an interesting one. So I didn't talk as much. I talked about how they fit on this team, but then you talked about Chase and the Bengals. How familiar are you with Jermaine Burton?
Limited. What I like about him is I feel like there's a strong possibility he's the wide receiver 3 on the team, and you're grabbing him in where basically where we grabbed him is where he's going almost every draft.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it's kind of making that same bet on the rising tides. I like being able to grab Zach Moss in like the 8th round, 9th round most times, and it's
Mm-hmm.
just like we saw what his potential was when he was getting the rock with Jonathan Taylor out. And it's
Right.
just like I feel like this is a team I'm willing to take some stabs on some rosters,
Right.
because again, the same with the Browns. Not that I love the Browns. It sounds like we are both high on it. We didn't talk about it off air, but
Mm-hmm.
to me, the Bengals are in a similar situation where outside of Jamar Chase, like all of the Browns are going in like the 7th, 8th round or later. And
Right.
if they have a great season, like I don't want, it's not closing line value, maybe it's end of season value is way above where you're drafting them. So to me, I'd like the upside that I feel like they present.
Yeah, and so Burton he was drafted in the 3rd round,
Mm-hmm.
the 80th overall pick. He was at Georgia. I believe he was on their 2021 national championship team. Then he was at Alabama. He transferred to Alabama it's like wild how these guys can just like move around. But he is he's like crazy talented. I guess he's a bit of a headache. I got a pick here. Where's my cue? I had some guys queued up. So I'm going to take Elijah Moore as my 8th receiver. And then, so I'm going to take Darren Waller here and talk about him in a second. Jermaine.
Go ahead with Burton, and then we'll
So
get to
Burton, very talented out of Alabama. And but he's like a guy who they say is like, he's got to get it together up here, right? Like he's a headache. He kind of is just like a loose cannon and on and off the field. Like there's stuff going on. And those guys can be like kind of risky, but also like 2 things. You've got the T. Higgins situation where he's been franchise tagged, kind of wants out, but doesn't sound like he's going to get it. But also like we've seen those situations devolve where to like player is disgruntled and now all of a sudden like you get bumps and bruises a lot in the NFL, and like now the guy doesn't feel like he's in the long-term plans. Like does he miss 5 or 6 games because he's milking injuries? And also for the Bengals, if they don't have Higgins in their long-term plans, Burton, like talent-wise, like he's your bookend with Chase, like long-term, or at least you'd want to get a look at him. So a guy like that in the 14th, 15th round, super intriguing to me. And then the Darren Waller pick. So Hilo was doing like a what if sort of thing. Like his thing was the Titans. He put it out on Twitter. Like, what if the Titans are just like above average pass rate this year, and with their new weapons. Like Darren Waller, there's a lot of guys at this point in the draft, especially now, like we're in May,
Mm-hmm.
where at the end,
they may not play. They may not be on NFL rosters.
Right. There's all these guys. It's all big what ifs. It's big jumps. Like, it gets pretty efficient. Like the last 2 or 3 rounds, there's a lot of guys who aren't even drafted in every draft, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but I would rather this early in the draft season, I'd rather you take a shot on a guy like Darren Waller. Like, I'd rather you take the shot on the big what if.
Well, that's my point is, like, most of the guys that you're doing that exercise basically with, where it's like the what if game, the what if is like a 3 or 4 step process. Like, what if this guy becomes the starter and he actually is better than we thought, and the quarterback is functional and this offense is okay? Like, with Waller,
what if he doesn't retire?
What if he decides to play football for $12 million this year? Like, that's what he'd be walking away from. And just from, again, the closing line value talk, like, if we knew Darren Waller was going to play this season, like if he came out a week from now and said, yeah, I'm going to play, I mean, where does he go? I would think he's got to go up.
He's got to go in like the 10th round. He's got to go with
the Goddard, Schultz, Hockenson, like in
that's
that
the
range.
Yeah,
because he'd be the clear second option behind Neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
in a team that's going to struggle and going to be throwing.
Yeah. And he's just like, he's a talented guy. Like, we've seen him be very successful on an NFL field. And I think last year's Giants situation was obviously not ideal, but
okay. So on a draft like this, and this is a complete strategy conversation. If we're betting on Waller, are we taking a third tight end on this team? Because we already have Mark Andrews. That's my question. Because I don't want to say it's 50-50, but there's a strong possibility that Waller doesn't play at all. So I kind of feel like this is a roster where we probably need a third tight end.
Yeah, so I'm taking Gerald Everett. And then, so basically to answer your question, yes. And the reason is because of how it fits together, right? Like, I like making that bet, but also, like, I've talked about it last year, my team that took 7th. When you see it take place, when you're up near the top like that, and it's live scoring, obviously the last like 2 or 3 weeks, I'm sweating it all out. And so every play, towards the end of the games, like, you're seeing these big shifts in your winnings, like a DFS week kind of, but it's playing out much slower because it's like the last 2 to 3 weeks
instead of minutes
were the equivalent of like when you're watching the fourth quarter or the late Sunday games on a NFL Sunday. So very grueling, mentally taxing. But where I'm going with it is I like the Waller bet, but also if the bet is wrong, I think it's a good 19th round bet. But if the bet is wrong, now if I only have 2 tight ends, I'm automatically taking a 0 on Andrews bye week. And any weeks where Andrews like leaves early or were to miss, like, it's the NFL. Like, Andrews could have an awesome season and pay off his draft, whatever, but he, and miss 2
and only play games. 14 games. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like, that's very like conceivable range of outcomes. That might be like the likeliest range of outcomes, like, just for any NFL player, is to miss like 2 or 3 games. Like, it's hard to make it through like 17 NFL games. So from that standpoint, just being like, if Waller doesn't play, this roster is like toast. And it works out good for me because Everett is a guy I'm really high on.
And he completes your, I know you don't force the correlation, but I think in the 20th round, it's nice to say, hey, we're already betting on DJ Moore. We're already betting on Caleb Williams. Why not complete the bet? It's a 20th round pick.
Yeah, and Everett's a guy who, like, he's a talented player. I'm not just clicking him because he's got the shy next to him. He's
Yeah,
because
I mean, we saw him in LA the last couple of years. He had some spike weeks. He
Yep, and I mean,
certainly got that stuff.
I've been a fan of him since he came out. I think uh, he's a talented, athletic guy, and I think them bringing him in, they've got Komet, but I think Everett, like if Komet misses time, like Everett's like an every down tight end for
Mhm.
the Bears, I think. So yeah, and then you look at. So do you have any? I guess looking at the roster, any questions or thoughts on how this is built? We'll start with quarterback and running back because it's hard to have the whole thing up.
Sure. Yeah, so I mean, I think the quarterback, I think, is your I don't want to say this roster's biggest weakness, but it's its biggest unknown because you have 3 rookie quarterbacks. And so we've seen rookie quarterbacks come out and have really strong seasons. I know we just talked about Stroud on this episode. We've seen strong outings out of rookie quarterbacks, but we've also seen them struggle. And so to me, I think that's your biggest question mark. I mean, this roster is very strong. I know we're not talking about it right now, but this roster is very strong on a wide receiver point of view, for me at least. And I think your question marks are, you've got 6, running backs here. We talk more process at OWS than picks specifically. Certainly, I mean that's generally where I go with this. So I don't want to get too in the weeds on the picks, but to me, at your running back position, we've got a bunch of what ifs. Like we don't have a bell cow. Even our first running back pick, Alvin Kamara, I think has question marks, which is why you grab Kendry Miller to kind of offset that. So to me, that's what kind of stands out. As you're backing up and reviewing, how do you see the quarterback running back spot before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, kind of to your point, like the quarterback position with Caleb Williams, Drake May, JJ McCarthy, all rookie quarterbacks. And this, I mean, again, it's just like a big picture. Like a lot of my bets in Bestball are just like big picture, like how do I see it playing out? And like this is such a highly touted quarterback class that like it wouldn't surprise me if all 3 of these guys are top 15 quarterbacks next year. And if that happens, then I mean, Williams, it wouldn't shock me if he has a top 5 quarterback season this year. And having May and McCarthy, like that's the other thing is like when you go through these drafts, I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because, this is on our free show and, we have our paid subscribers pay for some of the deeper dives on strategy stuff. But like where May and McCarthy, and I kind of talked about it with Waller, but where May and McCarthy went 16th, 17th round, 192nd, 193rd pick, like they're going to play every possible snap that they're healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't say that about that many players that are going in that range. And for McCarthy, like he has just such incredible weapons around him in the passing game that if he actually is really as good as his advanced metrics said from college, he could go, he could really surprise people. And then May is like, May and Williams 18 months ago, people were talking about those 2 being like the 2 best quarterbacks in the 2024 class. So just like big picture zooming out and like, I do that a lot in DFS. It'll be like when I won in week 6 last year, some of the I'm not going to go through the whole roster, but a couple of the decisions were literally like, well, this guy doesn't feel like a great pick, but if you told me before the season started I could get him for this salary, I would have played him on every single roster. So like just like kind of removing that like recency bias of it or whatever, like you've got 3 quarterbacks that, high pedigree, just roll the dice with them all on one roster. And, if more than one pan out, like it turns from a weakness into a strength.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
I mean, your wide receiver core, I think in general, is very strong. We were talking about Jermaine Burton even just a little bit. The name is StatATL. I do live in Atlanta. I do cheer for UGA. I am familiar with him. I do remember his. I think it was his freshman or sophomore year. He had like one massive game against like Ole Miss or Mississippi State. Like he literally went for like 200 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns. Like he has massive ceiling. But yeah, I mean he had some off the field issues. I think he had some off the field issues at Alabama as well. Like after he transferred. So like it's just kind of like can he get his head right? Because he definitely has the talent, and he's on this roster. He's like our wide receiver 6 or 7.
Yeah, he's 6. So yeah, I mean getting and then Corley, rookie out of I believe Kentucky, going to the Jets early in the 3rd round. Elijah Moore, pairing him with Cooper. Yeah, I just like how, after going with those 4 studs early, I like how, how the other receivers kind of fit in with them and can hopefully complement. Like if more kind of works together with Amari, right? Like where if Amari does his thing where he pulls a hamstring and misses 2 weeks, like Moore can prop you up a little bit if that happens to be during a span where these other studs, like 1 or 2 of them, have a bye. That 5 or 10 points, what I was talking about before, like that can make a big difference. When you get to the end of the tournament and everything's bunched up at the top, like those few points, like if you have just Waller as your second tight end and he quits football and you take zeros, like that can just make such like a big difference. So I like that.
You may not know, but when you were last year, I think you came in 7th in this contest. What was the difference between like your total score and like the 2nd or 3rd place total score, 1st place total? Like what was the difference? We talking 20 points? We talking about 50? Like what
I was
was
47 points behind first.
Okay.
So I was 3.8 points behind 6th place, which was 10K. And that was the week where, and I mean, I had great injury luck, so I'm not like, woe is me, like feel bad for me.
But you have to, I don't want to say to steal praise from our competitor. You kind of have to run pure in these type of contests to have a shot at the top.
Yeah. Well, and Raheem Mostert got ruled out that last week, and Kamara got hurt in the first. I think we might have talked about this last week, but Kamara got hurt in the first half, so ended up taking like an 8 at one of the running back spots. And when you then are 4 points behind 6th, I think so. I was 22 points behind 3rd place, which was would have been for 100K, so 70 grand away from, so I mean those are big swings. Like if you do get it together and get close to the top, those little point differences make a big difference. So I mean the bets here are, if you had to sum it up, it's almost like a parlay. Like the rookie quarterback class, the Browns and Saints backfields, and Darren Waller plays football. That's kind of my parlay. And then obviously the stud receivers, just hopefully they stay healthy, because none of those guys are like there's not questions about any of those like top 4 receivers if they're on the field.
Agreed.
So, we shall see.
We shall. Mike, I think another great week.
Yeah. we will get we'll have you draft one next week. No, you're still getting your feet wet. But yeah, we'll fire you up and let you run the show, run the ship next week, and we'll see what you've sent me to the viewers. Billy sent me a couple of his rosters, and watch out. He's a rising star here. He's coming at you. He's figuring it out.
I got a lot more correlation. I liked your roster today. I like when you're making concentrated bets, but
yeah,
you know it better than me. I'm looking at it more from a theory point of view and from more a playoff best ball where I've had some success, but it's a totally different game. But
and obviously 1 week season, Bestball Plus 2024 is our product. Highly recommend viewers to check it out. And I don't think you were intending to, Billy, but what you just said is basically, to tout myself a little bit and to tout 1 week season. What you just said is why, I think there's so much value for people to join our site, to come. I don't know a lot of other people who are solely focused on drafters the way I am. I'm also playing DraftKings, but my focus is drafters, and then DraftKings, it has the same amount of roster spots, same scoring as far as PPR. So it fits well. And then Underdog, I once in a while will jump in. But most people, that is how they play drafters, is it's really hard to get all those thought processes that you've built in from playing Underdog, from playing the playoff style contests. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to swing out of that. So that's why there's so much value, I think, on drafters. And especially if you come check out our site and check out the strategies and kind of follow along. And the other thing, again, I'm not, I've got under 1,000 Twitter followers. I'm not I'm not one of these guys that's shamelessly promoting himself and engagement farming and whatever to try to I'm the smartest. But it is a business, and obviously I believe in 1 week season. I believe in myself. And the thing that a friend actually said it to me this week, just somebody I've known for a long time that I live near and from my home leagues and went to high school with. And most of the big best ball people, they won and then they started getting this big following. Mm-hmm. I think what's interesting about me, and I guess to tout myself, is last year I came out and I said, drafters is where you should put your money. This is the contest you should play in. And then I spent the summer talking about how you should attack it to win. And then I went out and took 7th place. So mm-hmm. I said it and then it happened. Not okay, I happened to win. And now, listen to me because, so to kind of toot my own horn there, really think the people should go check it out. Check out drafters, check out 1 week season, and tune in next week to see Billy take the mantle and get himself a shirt.
Mike, where can they find you on X, formerly Twitter?
At mjohnson_86. And we'll throw that in the comments or in the notes underneath the video as well this week. So yeah, check it out. But I'll throw occasional stuff on Twitter, but mostly I prefer to keep my stuff to the people who are paying for it, the loyal 1 week season subscribers in our Discord. So with that said, we'll let everybody get out of here. We're over an hour now, but I think we learned a lot, and we're both going to hit the hay, and we'll be back with the people next week.
Sounds good. Have a good one, Mike.
All right.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone.
See you next week.